iRacing right now.
He's got traction, he's going with the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson! Anderson's up to him!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Yeah, so we're using the VRS Direct Force Pro this year. We have a wheel adapter right here, so I'm using the rim I used last year. But the motor right here produces a lot of power, a lot of precision, and it helps me, just feel the car more, feel the car a lot quicker. Especially, this week we're at Sonoma. I can feel it, when it hits the curbs. Any little change in the car, the wheel reacts a lot quicker than your typical gear-driven or belt-driven wheel. For example, if you're on oval and the rear tires break loose, force feedback on it corrects a lot quicker than your typical wheels. There's no resistance pretty much as far as being able to make quick corrections on the wheel. So all that, paired with how precise the wheel itself is, it makes it to where it helps you as a driver, to find that extra hundredth or thousandths of a second. So when you're getting a direct drive wheel, especially the VRS wheel, it's heavy duty. It's got good weight to it, it's not a plastic toy. It feels like you can really beat up on it. A lot of people have issues with their plastic gear-driven wheels just kind of breaking after a couple years. This thing just feels like it can go forever. The forces are really strong where if you might have to let go of the wheel if you get into the wall. You can adjust all that with the settings on it and stuff, but the wheel itself doesn't play around. It's got way more strength than you could ever need, and that's what makes it good, that you can adjust that down to whatever the car needs. So initially you'll be able to get the controller box and the motor together, and eventually you will be able to add a rim onto that option. They'll also be including a button plate on it to put on the rim to have all sorts of different buttons and functionality. Also, pedals are coming, so that's a pretty big deal as well. Hasn't been covered too much, but the goal is to also have pedals to go along with the Direct Force Pro. So that's pretty exciting. The wheel feels good. It feels very much like a real world steering wheel. You just kind of feel like what you would imagine the car to feel like. A real steering wheel in a car is very smooth, it's very direct, very quick, and that's what this wheel feels like.
Welcome one and welcome all to SimSpeed TV this Saturday night. You know what time it is. It's Virtual Racing School GT Sprint Series time, round 5 of the 12-week season at the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari, otherwise known as Imola. Very historic, very legendary racing circuit that has been entertaining fans since the late 1950s. And now in 2021, it plays host once again to iRacing GT3s. I'm really looking forward to this one. My name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box as usual, Brad Wingard. And well, Bradley, I'm really looking forward to this because Imola always turns it up in terms of exciting racing.
Yeah, good evening, Reese. Thanks for having me. I am, like you, very, very excited for tonight. I've been looking forward to tonight all week. Imola is my absolute favorite track, and the racing here never, ever gets boring. So I'm so excited to see what happens tonight.
40 minutes is the race length. We've got estimated 24 to 25 laps and another wide pit window between lap 7 and lap 18. So every driver's going to have to make at least one pit stop here tonight to get fuel in. Time to take a look at where Imola is in the context of Europe. The Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari, of course, just across the river from the city of Imola in the Emilia-Romagna region of Italy, just east of the mountains, kind of northeast really, when you get into the rolling hills and meadows and farmland, all that sort of stuff. Imola started out as public roads in 1953. and it was turned into a permanent circuit over the coming decades. The current configuration of the circuit, dating from 2007, it's nearly 5 kilometers in length, and the corners come thick and fast. You do have that run through turn 16, 17, across the start-finish line towards turn 1, the longest flat-out section of the lap. A little bit of a break, but other than that, Brad, the corners just keep coming here. You've really got to drive with a rhythm around this track.
Yeah, rhythm's so important here, especially through corners like Tamburello, obviously a very famous corner in motorsport. Acqua Minerale is so easy to get wrong. Even down at Ravazza, yeah, it's at 290-degree left-handers, but that run out of 14 and 15 down that massive straightaway is so important in these cars.
Yeah, absolutely is. The drivers are in qualifying at the moment, but before we check out who's doing what out there, let's take a look at the championship standings for this particular series. This, of course, is an open series, so there's quite a few drivers competing week to week that you don't often see in this particular split, but I'm sure we'll be able to check it out there in just a moment. Unfortunately, we're unable to get the championship standings up. We do apologize for that. Here we go. We'll go to live pictures in the qualifying session here, just coming out of the final corner. The Coanda Sim Sport Porsche making its way across the line. That's Ayankan Guven driving there for VRS Coanda, of course, Virtual Racing School, the sponsor of this series, and a good friend of us here at SimSpeed TV. You'll find them on our replay bumpers, as I'm sure we'll be making quite a bit of use of those tonight, Bradley, because you and Jay, our director, have been watching some of the racing that's been going down this week, and there's certainly a lot of potential for chaos.
Yeah, especially I'm worried about turn 2, lap 2, lap 2 into the the Tamburello chicane is, it's wide enough for 2 cars, but and it can cause a lot of chaos at the start of the race. So hopefully we don't get anything, but I am also kind of expecting a little bit of a door bang into that chicane on the first lap.
Yeah, indeed. That's one thing that the drivers are going to have to look out for. Ivan Bertola in the Porsche, making his way across the start-finish line. 41.6 is his quickest time, and looks like he's going to go to a 41.8 on that particular one. Taylor Barnard as well. The Porsche looking very popular here tonight in the GT3 class. Having said that, we do have a Ford GT in this one. That is... wow. Okay. So you see that gap up the top there between Guven and Barnard. My goodness, that's a dead heat for pole. Guven has the pole position for the time being. Let's see if he can improve. 1 minute 40.4 for that one. Goodness me. For just a few moments, we had a dead heat for pole position in this session, which is fantastic to see. I'm sure that the racing is going to be incredibly intense. Sashai Nathakunyon here, making his way around the Ravazza turns in the Porsche. I was going to say, Bradley, with the car representation in this championship, you usually see people going for the Porsche, the Lamborghini mainly, the Mercedes, the Audi, and the BMW 41389 there for Nathakunyon. Those cars are the ones that typically make appearances, but we have a Ford GT in the field tonight, driven by Mark Hofsink. That is a blast from the past. The Ford GT has been around for years.
Yeah, I know a few people that would be quite happy to see a Ford out on track. It doesn't get much use anymore, but it is a very popular car. Well, it has been a very popular car in the past, so it's always good to see some of the old guys of GT3 still running in the modern series, if you would.
Yes, indeed. And the funny thing about the Ford GT GT3 is that it is actually not a real GT car. The Ford GT was run to GT3 specs in real life, but the iRacing model is based off the Ford GT GT2, which is a car that's been on the service for the better part of, I'd say about 11, maybe 12 years, as we look at Diogo Alberto Silva Almeida. A long name, taking the long way across the curb. The number 22 having set a 42.4 in the session so far, and that's down in 21st position, so he'll want to get some tenths out of that one. There's a lot of nice looking liveries that we're seeing out there as well. Looks like Diogo's livery really catching the eye with the gold, black and white paint job. Skull on the side. Always a good sign. Let's have a look then as he comes across the line. It's going to be a 1 minute 41.8, which puts him up into 14th position. Not a bad time there at all.
It seemed like a pretty clean run out of the last corner. We didn't catch the rest of the lap, but clearly it went well.
Indeed. Let's have a look then at the starting grid for round 5 of VRS GT at Imola. It's Ayhancan Guven and Taylor Barnard on the front row with Tommy Katila and Tim Volmir on the second row. Nathakunion shares row 3 with Rafael Schiffer rounding out the top 6. Dominik Kulikovsky starts in 7th alongside Mario Vartanian, the Australian. Ivan Bertola, 9th, with Yuri Steinmetz rounding out the top 10. And 11th and 12th positions occupied by Alberto Gravilli and Maverick Benson.
On row 7, we have Sebastian Tixio back again from last week. Diogo Alberto Silva Almeida next to him. Christopher Lipp and Paul Mansell on row 8. Danny Bowles and Daniel Hart-Riesel rounding out row 9. Christopher Lipp and Paul Mansell behind them. No, I already did that. I apologize. I'm getting a bit lost. Reese, if you want to finish the grid.
All good, all good. It's Luciano Assis alongside Martin Hartl-Riesel with Hofsink, the sole forward in the field. Jelle Stamborg starts alongside him. Then it's Chris Chatterton and William Hope rounding out the top 24. The final 3 positions on the grid, Ted Bradbury, Rick Broikers, and Ethan Mitchell in the number 18. And he's driving the Lamborghini. So we'll now turn our attention to the start of this formation lap, because the drivers start on the run out of Variante Alta and down to Ravazza towards the end of the lap. Imola is one of those tracks where a full formation lap would probably take quite a while, so iRacing starts everyone here on the grid, so to speak, on the run up to the final set of corners. The pace car can pull in straight away and we can get ourselves off to a very quick start here. Looks like most, if not all, drivers are now out on the grid. The timer has hit 0. The pace car pulls away. And let's see then. Taylor Barnard versus Ayhancan Guven up there at the top in the 2 Porsches. Highest Mercedes is the third place man, Tommy Katila. And then you have to look through an ocean of Porsches and Lamborghinis to find the top McLaren of Yuri Steinmetz. And of course there is the Ford driven by Mark Hofsink. Looks like pretty much everyone else driving either a Ford or a Lamborghini. The pace car is going to come into the pits now. Let's see how much of a jump Ayhancan Guven can get on Taylor Barnard leading the way. We've already had a crash in the back here on the formation lap. Getting off into the gravel trap was Paul Mansell, and he's already got some damage as we take the start. It looks like Guven has gotten a very big jump there over the rest of the field, but Barnard is looking to be under a bit of pressure here from Tommy Katila, who might just try to fire it up the inside of turn 1. No, backs out of it, has to go defensive versus Tim Volmir. They make contact through the second part of Tamburello. They fortunately managed to keep it clean, though probably not without a couple of 0Xs. Let's see how the rest of the field fares. We've got a car slow William Hope in the Porsche, not having a good time out of Tamburello, but everyone else seems to be making their way through pretty smoothly. And the top 2 have started to break away. Taylor Barnard giving Ayhancan Guven one heck of a chase.
Yeah, so far a nice clean start to the race. Obviously really unfortunate for Paul Mansell before the race even really started, but up into Piratella now is still a clean run, beginning to be a bit single file, which I think we'll see for a lot of this race. A lot of fuel saving can be done around here, quite hard to pass, and with a really, really long pit lane transition, I think if you don't quite have the pace advantage over someone, saving fuel is going to benefit come later in the race here more than probably most of the other races we've been to.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of straight line sections here at Imola, and spectacular watching the cars vault over those curbs. I just went back and checked the incident for Paul Mansell. Looked to me like Danny Bolts was on his inside through Rivarza. Mansell turned in and Bolts just tagged his left rear quarter, which sent him spinning around and into the gravel trap. So looks to me like Paul Mansell is in the pits at the moment. He'll likely come back out soon if he's not elected to retire at this point. But as lap 1 is complete, we refresh ourselves as to the race details. The drivers are going to have to wait until lap 7 before they can think about pitting. And for the time being, looks like those two Porsches keeping each other very honest at the front of the field. And that looks to be Luciano Assis in the Lamborghini, making his way down the pit lane, passing the stricken Paul Mansell. I'm not too sure why Luciano has jumped into the pits. Might be for a penalty for a starting infringement. Not quite sure, but looking further back in the field, we're seeing some side-by-side running. That's Christoph Lipp, who's really come a cropper with the Porsche of Chris Chatterton down the run up to Villeneuve. And these guys are running pretty much at the back of the field, so they've got to be careful not to get in each other's way too much, otherwise they're going to really lose touch with everyone up ahead. Using a lot of that AstroTurf runoff the Porsches as they make their way down into Acqua Minerale, which is a very challenging part of the circuit.
As much as I love this racetrack, I think Acqua Minerale is probably my favorite corner. The compression down the hill and the double right-hander is second to none. It's a lot of fun, but it is also, as we see now, very easy to lose it through that section.
Absolutely, that's Rick Broikers. He's gotten a little crossed up on the entry of the corner as we get our first VRS replay of the night. So makes his way reasonably through Piratella, using a bit too much, I think, of the runoff area, but he just got a little squirrely turning and under brakes onto the grass and spun around into the runoff area. That's where Acqua Minerale really comes into its own. You have to be braking and turning at the same time. And if you've got your brake bias set a little too far to the rear, or if you're being a little too extreme with your inputs, then the car can very easily get unsettled. But there's no such trouble for our two leaders, Ayhancan Guven and Taylor Barnard. They have really broken away from the rest of the field now. Tommy Cartilla is going to have to start looking over his shoulder soon, because he has got the pack behind him. There's Tim Volmir in 4th place, and then they got the train headed up by Raphael Schiffer. They got Sashai Nathan-Cunyon, Mario Vartanian, Yuri Steinmetz, Dominic Kulikovsky, and the train just goes all the way back to the likes of Ted Bradbury and Maverick Benson, who were running side by side on the exit of the hairpin just before. Some good racing going on further back in the field, but we run on board with Yuri Steinmetz in the Soul McLaren, that turbo V8 singing, and I would presume those exhaust pipes absolutely glowing on the downshifts. There's a bit of a train starting to form here, and Imola, despite the fact that it's got some very heavy braking zones, Bradley, it's actually kind of hard to pass here.
Yeah, we are racing on the modern circuit, thankfully. It's a bit wider, but there's only really 2, maybe 3 safe places to pass around here, which would be into Ravazza 1, Tosa, and maybe Piratella if you get a good run out of the hairpin. But besides that, it's very much a follow the leader track. But unlike a lot of other places, it doesn't make it any less exciting.
No, certainly not, and that is a problem there for the Lamborghini of, I think that's Maverick Benson, who's gone for a bit of a trip into the runoff, got hit from behind by Martin Huttel-Riesel. There's been some pretty cramped up racing going on in that lower part of the field, and the Australians definitely not having the best time of it. Round the outside into Tamburello, there goes Ethan Mitchell, round Danny Bolts, who made that contact with Paul Mansell on the formation lap. Let's see what Ethan can do here to try and hold back his fellow Lamborghini lover, as the Porsche of Chris Chatterton slips in front of Mark Hofsink just behind in the Soul Ford GT. Seeing that Nathan Kunjorn is going a bit slowly on the run up to Piratella, we'll get a virtual racing school replay, see what happened to him. And it looks like this was rear quarter contact with Mario Vartanian. Vartanian hitting up the inside of Tosa, but the gap was just closing, and around goes Sachet.
Did really well in a very clustered area of racetrack to not hit anyone. I can see where Mario was coming from. There was some space there, but I don't think there was quite enough for that move.
Yeah, I would be in agreement with that. Tosa is a very tempting passing spot. It's the only real hairpin on the circuit. So the drivers will want to try and shove one up the inside there, but if the driver in front of you is already going defensive and only leaving like a car width or something on the inside, sometimes it's not best to go for that move. Either way, the top two have absolutely dropped these guys, and Kartila and Volmir all together on their lonesome in their own pack here. The Mercedes and the two Porsches on the podium, and Guven, he's keeping up a very consistent, strong performance here. He's maintaining the gap to Taylor Barnard. And I got to say props to Barnard as well, because he's managing to keep that gap himself while managing to pull away from all of the drivers behind. Here's Gravili and Almeida down into Tosa. And Gravili, we've seen racing a couple of times before in our broadcasts in this particular time slot that we broadcast. Seems to be doing a pretty good job of holding off the advances of Diogo.
Yeah, so far a good start for Gravili. Consistent running again, like we've seen in the past. Very close behind, so he's doing a very good job defending there. But like we have said, it is difficult to pass. I don't know, it might go for a move into the chicane, never mind. But it would be very tempting for Diego to just stick the nose in and pray that it sticks. But I think it's a bit too early to be doing that. Like we've said, we still have the pit stop coming in 3 laps. But so far, clean running. He's up 1 spot, is Alberto. So I'm sure he's happy where he is already.
Yeah, indeed. He'll be snatching a nice draft here off Alberto Gravili. Let's see if it's going to be enough to try and make a move into the second corner at the entry to Tamburello. This left-hand sweeper they go through now is technically turn 1, and alongside goes Almeida, and Gravili just lifting off early to let him go there. He knows that there's not much sense in fighting a move like that incredibly hard, because they have still got a whole train of cars up ahead of them that they can certainly take advantage of if any of them make a mistake. Here's Tim Volmir, meanwhile, chasing down Mr. Kartila up at the front of the field for the final podium position.
The Mercedes has been very well known as the top speed car for GT3s in iRacing, which will definitely be helping it here, because that main straight it just seemingly goes on and on and on. But the Lambo is very good in the draft, so it's making a really interesting combination for Volmir behind, and whenever Catalyst starts to pull away, Volmir starts drafting up behind him again as he jumps over the curb. So it's a very interesting battle, two different styles of cars, so we'll see if he can get him down into, well, turn 2 on this lap, but I don't think he's quite close enough even with the draft.
Yeah, you'll have to depend on a mistake from Tommy Kartila here out of Rivazza. Both cars taking a good amount of the AstroTurf on exit. It's very slippery out there, so you have to be careful on the throttle. Thankfully, these cars have traction control, so that can save you, potentially, if you play your cards right. And yeah, you're right, Bradley. Tim Volmir just not going for it in the draft versus Tommy Kartila. I don't know whether that's because he's lifting off a little bit to save a bit of fuel, or if his car just doesn't have the pace to keep up with the mighty V8 of the Mercedes. Battle pack behind, though. They've got Mario Vartanian, Dominik Kulikovski, and Yuri Steinmetz here. And Kulikovski and Steinmetz were side by side on the last lap when Steinmetz ran wide out of Tosa, the corner that they're coming up to now. See if he makes the same error this lap. I would expect not, and he certainly doesn't. Does run quite a bit over the AstroTurf, though. For the time being, though, Mario Vartanian, not only has he had to deal with the awkward situation of turning around Nathan Cunyon, but now he also has to deal with the assault by 2 mid-engine machines.
Well, very sideways out of Aqua Minerale there was Mario. Thankfully, he's a rather skilled driver, especially given his youth. But the Porsches, as we can clearly see, oh, there we go. There's a spin in the back.
Oh dear.
Who was that?
That was Steinmetz, I think. Oh dear, no, yeah, Kulikovsky. And he got collected by Steinmetz as well. Looks to me like Kulikovsky just got massively unsettled on the direction change up at Variante Alta. Check it out on the
no,
VRS
he's just hit
replay.
someone else. He's hit 2 people. I apologize for cutting you off, but
All good, man. All good. We'll stay with the replay, I guess. And there on that direction change, just the weight transfer overwhelmed the rear tires, and away he went. So, yeah. Oh, I'm just seeing it on my end now. It's all gone wrong here for Dominik Kulikovsky. Watch this. He tries to get back up to speed coming down, but starting to weave there. I don't know whether that's damage or whatever, but he just completely loses control and takes out another 2 cars. That was Daniel Hartel-Riesel in the orange Lamborghini, and then the blue Lamborghini, that was, it was Martin Hartel-Riesel. Two relatives, I believe, and both coming a cropper of the same guy.
yeah, I've been on the receiving end of those sort of incidents. I'm sure we all have, and they're incredibly frustrating when you're minding your own business and then someone, like, you got to give him props for trying to drive it back to the pits, but sometimes you just got to know when to wave the white flag. But that transition across the Variante Alta curves can be very easy, but it can also unsettles the cars so much because they get so much air, and then it suddenly plants and has traction, and the back can just become the front of the car very easily if you get it wrong, and then we have incidents like that happen.
Yeah, we do indeed. Well, the battles up at the top of the field have calmed down a bit, so we're taking a look here at Ivan Bertola. Oh no, William Hope, who we saw going a bit slowly on the first lap. He's had a bit of an issue. I think that's down at Rivazza or something like that. We'll have to take a look here. Oh, it looks like it was at Acca Minerale. That's a very odd issue. Might that be a hardware failure? Because the car was turning, and then it just wasn't. This will tell the full story. Watch the in-game driver's wheels. Oh yeah, all the way to the left. That is definitely a hardware failure for Mr. Hope. It's a big shame for him.
Yeah, that's a very strange incident. I was going to say, it's very weird for you to lose it at that part of Aqua Minerale. Usually you lose it and you spin up the hill because you don't make the second apex, but yeah, clearly a hardware failure there rather than driver error.
Indeed. Chris Chatterton making his way into the pits as we're now within the pit window. And aside from the drivers that have had incidents out there, Chatterton, the only car to make his way into the pits so far in this race. So this will be the big question for everyone around. What can we do from here? When do we pit, especially if we're in a battle pack like Mark Hofsink here? The good old retro lines of the original Ford GT coming up into the Variante Alta, and you'll see how much curb these guys use. They just absolutely vault over them, and you won't get an off track for that. It's one of the cool things about Imola, I think. There's certain points of the circuit where you can just attack the trackside furniture, so to speak.
Yeah, you do, and you do have to be a bit careful on the first part of Variante Alta, because obviously you want to take as much curb for the first part to get a straight run out of the second, but if you take a little bit too much, as Mark comes into the pits now, if you take too much of that first curb, you do actually get a slowdown, and because of how Imola is designed, those slowdowns can add up to massive values if you get them in the wrong spot.
Indeed, have a look at this battle into turn one. This is pretty fantastic. 3 cars together. That's Ethan Mitchell and Danny Bolt side by side as Martin Hartel-Riesel makes his way very quickly away from that battle. He's thinking, I'm done with this. He's already dealing with some damage from that contact with Dominik Kulikovsky, who was spinning out in front of him. So Martin, at the moment, it's just damage control for him in the blue Lamborghini there. But have a look at Ethan Mitchell. He's still having goes there at Danny Bolts. They won't want to battle too hard, though, because they've got Christoph Lipp behind them, who will certainly get back up into that battle and try to get some positions of his own. Here's Volmir and Katila, the battle for third. Down into Ravazza for the 10th time for these guys. And when you're in a pack like this, a very small pack of only 2 cars, and you're all on your lonesome, the question on your mind may very well be, when do I pit? Because I don't want to pit too early and come out in the middle of traffic and end up ruining my race that way, having to drive a bit slower than I need to. But at the same time, oh dear, we had another problem out there for a Lamborghini. It's Jelle Stamborg, and that is down at Ravazza. It seems to be a place where it's very popular to have incidents, Brad, as we check out the VRS replay.
Yeah, the cars go through a massive change in spring compression through Ravazza as he comes into the pits now while we watch the replay. The car has so much load on it going down the hill into the corner, and then as soon as you turn it, all goes away. The rear unloads and it's so easy to lose it. Thankfully no contact, but he did lose a lot of time and he's chosen to come into the pits now. And as you were talking about Katila and Volmir, the pit lane at Imola it's a 45-second transition. It's probably one of the biggest in most Grand Prix racing. So these guys, if like Volmir was to pit now from behind, he'd drop in front of Steinmetz in his McLaren, who's just come out of the pits, which gives him a 25-second gap of clear air, which if he has a pace advantage would be helpful. But obviously the flip side of that is, what if he speeds in pit lane or on exit, or if he puts too much fuel in and loses time and then it becomes redundant. So the pit strategy here, I think, could be more important than other tracks because it's so hard to pass and the pit lane transition time is so big. It opens that strategy up more than this is the window, when do I pit? And it's really interesting.
There's some excellent points you're making there. Something that is not often considered, just how long the pit transit time is on a track. If you're racing at the lower levels of sim racing, it often doesn't come into the equation. But, when you get to this level, as we see Diogo Alberto Silva Almeida making his way into the box, definitely becomes important as this battle continues between the Lamborghini trio. I've been loving this. Ethan Mitchell getting alongside the outside of Martin Hartel-Riesel, but Martin manages to defend that. Opens Ethan up to an attack from Danny Bolts once again, and you see with just how intensely these guys have been battling, Christoph Lipp in the bright red Porsche has caught right back up to them. So this is a 4-car train now for 11th position, it seems.
Some famous British YouTuber once said that the cars might not be real, but the racing sure is, and these guys are absolutely proving that. The fight that they put on is like looking for 2 wide down into Aqua Minerale is not something I would do, but it might only be a 40-minute sprint race, but they're treating it like every lap is a final lap, and they're being patient, but they're also being patiently aggressive, passive aggressive with their moves. And it's really, especially with that main straight, to give that big draft, it changes every single lap and it never gets old. That's why we love coming.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it's why a lot of people around the world love GT racing as well. I mean, sports car racing historically has been about endurance, about trying to get as far as possible, not driving the car to its limits. But in the last few decades, endurance racing has become an entirely different beast, and There we go. That's Christoph Lipp making his way into the pits. He's right at the back of that train. He's thinking there might be no way I can get past these guys on track. I'm going to jump into the pits, try and get myself some clear air, see what I can do as the battle continues here between Martin Hartl-Riesel and Ethan Mitchell. Round the outside into Tamburello. Move done for Ethan. That was a fantastic pass.
Yeah, great awareness by both drivers. It's, like I said at the start, the track's wide enough for 2 wide through these chicanes, but the driver, like the commitment and the skill and the awareness is absolutely bit of a slow run through the chicane there. But the awareness by all 3 of them to be racing this close with no contact is just phenomenal, and props to them for putting on such a good show.
Ivan Bertola is putting on a bit of a lawn mowing show there on the run up to Akka Minerali, and that might be classed as a bit of an unsafe rejoin. Fortunately, no other cars were involved in that as the battle continues here. Hartl-Riesel fending off Bolts, who now is having to deal with Rick Breukers there in the Porsche in his rearview mirror. Down into Variante Alta they go once again, and we look a bit further afield at Maverick Benson, who's had a couple of issues this race so far. It looks like Maverick has just come out of the pits here, and Chris Chatterton just behind him. So Chatterton we saw making his way down the pits a few laps ago. As this battle continues, the Porsche once again dives for the lane. Ivan Bertola there, and also Rick Breukers leaving the 3 Lamborghinis out there to continue their fight. So Breukers now bringing it in. Look at the draft here from Danny Bolts on Martin Hartl-Riesel. The lack of bonnet, I suppose you could say, on Hartl-Riesel's car, really harming his straight line speed. And you can see that now that Ethan Mitchell is by him, he's just trying to streak away as best he can, break that draft so that he doesn't have to deal with these 2.
Yeah, sorry, Reese, there's a lot of pit action going on at the moment. I'm trying to follow that and listen to you. All the early pitters are starting to gain their time, but this battle for... Where are we? This one here, yes. It's unrelenting and still nearly side by side into Tosa. And sorry, not Tosa. I'm getting my corner names mixed up. Down into Aqua Minerale now is following closer and closer each lap. I don't know if there's a bit of impatience or just a bit more trust growing between them, but Bolts is unrelenting in his pressure, and it's allowing Mitchell to slowly but surely pull away from the 2 of them. Half a second quicker last lap just because he's not having to deal with this pressure, and I don't know if one of them's going to blink first or if they'll try and go in together, but it's ever evolving and it's close and exciting, and I love it.
As do I. I think the question for Martin Hartl-Riesel is, does he elect to repair damage in the stop? Because it hasn't affected his pace a huge amount, as that's a problem for Raphael Schiffer. Oh dear, no. That's another unsafe rejoin there, and Alberto Gravilli has collected him through Tamburello. Compromised speed, which allows a pass for Sasha Nathakunion, who himself is recovering from an earlier spin. Get the Virtual Racing School replay of that. It seems that Hartl-Riesel has been left alone on track because Danny Bolts has come in for his stop, but here's what happened to Raphael Schiffer down into Tamburello. And one thing that we haven't mentioned yet is the fact that these speed bumps on the inside of the corner as well. There's also the grass on the outside of the corner. That's what's gotten him in the end, and then the rejoin happens. You see the driver coming through here in the Porsche just right on the apex, and at that point when the car's all loaded up and you turned in for the chicane, Gravilli really couldn't do anything because the car was loaded up.
Yeah, you can turn the wheel more, but it's not really going to do anything at that point, is it? Especially that point in the corner, you're on the accelerator just a little bit to get the car settled on the landing from those sleepy policeman curves. So it's even less turning that you're going to have because the weight's going to be shifted to the rear, and unsafe rejoin. Nearly could have been a horrible accident, but I think it was just a glancing blow more than anything.
Yeah, we'll see how much it's ended up harming. harming Alberto Gravilli at the end of it. Katila and Volmir, on the other hand, they are not letting up. Neither is Christoph Lipp, who's now right on the back here of Danny Boltz, who's just come out of the pits himself. Actually, Boltz has just gotten through there on Mr. Lipp. We'll get the Virtual Racing School replay of that one, and it looks like it happened on the run out of Tosa. Christoph Lipp made a bit of a mistake in the middle of the corner, lost some momentum on the exit, and that's what allowed Boltz through. So he completes the pass at Piratella. Nicely done indeed.
Yeah, very clean move. That exit at Tosa is very underestimated, I think, by a lot of, I guess, casual Imola races. Is that a phrase I can use? You think, oh yeah, it's just a hairpin. It's a medium speed hairpin as well, all things considered. But the run up into Piratella is longer than it looks on a map, and can obviously lose you a bunch of time if you get it wrong.
Absolutely. We just saw there for Tim Volmir, he took a bit too much curb at the Variante Alta and picked up a slowdown for his troubles, which means that he's dropped a bit of time to Tommy Katila. So that battle has calmed down for now. Alberto Gravilli and Mr. Nathakunjuan here in the final couple of corners. Both of these guys have yet to pit. Looks like Mario Vartanian and then Alberto Gravilli coming into the lane. We're seeing just up ahead Mario Vartanian there with Daniel Hartel-Riesel making his way back out of the pits with a fresher car now after his big incident with Dominik Kulikovsky. So let's hope that he can get back out there, bring it home, get some extra safety rating points, and see if he can get a finish on the board. Gravilli then making his way towards the end of the pits, and out he will come. That was another Porsche just making its way out of the pits there. Okay. It was Mario Vartanian that we were watching there. Our leader, Ankan Guven, on his lonesome. Where is Taylor Barnard? All the way back there. That's 4.9 seconds. That's the gap for the lead now. And it seems that Barnard has made a couple of mistakes along the way. Either that or Guven, once the tyres got up to temperature, was just able to blast away. And opportune time to go for the pits then for our leader. Does Barnard follow him in? He does indeed.
Yeah, I think it was not a matter of Barnard making some mistakes, but Guven has just been lapping 3, 4, 5 tenths a lap faster consistently since the green flag, so not really much you can do there unless he makes a mistake, but raw pace will almost always trump over the course of a 40-minute race such as this one.
It was pretty cunning from Tim Volmir. It looked like he might not have been running the pit limiter or was shifting from first into second rapidly to get a little bit of extra speed there over Tommy Katila, and it looks like he's just beaten him out of the pits. They are actually inside each other as they make their way out of the lane. And it was a very aggressive pit entry from Volmir as well. They make their way out and the position has changed. Tim Volmir now up into effective third with that very well executed run through the pits.
Yeah, it was a whole 6 tenths quicker, which was obviously more than enough to get that done. It's now going to be interesting to see how Volmir can hold off that rumbling, monstrous V8 behind him. Obviously nothing against the V10, it's a great sounding car, but that Mercedes just punches you in the chest when it drives past, more than any other GT3 car, I think. And the aero on the Lambo is better than the Mercedes in my opinion, but the raw power from that V8 just pulls it down the straight, so it's going to be an interesting exchange for the rest of the race.
Absolutely is. You know, I've seen these cars in real life pounding around Mount Panorama, and you're right, the Mercedes does hit you in the face every time it goes by. That's a mistake for Sebastian Tixier down at Villeneuve, which allows his fellow Porsches of Almeida and Bertola through. There was nearly contact there on the run into Tosa. That battle had been brewing for quite some time. Just looked like Tixier got a bit crossed up over the curb and really had to compromise his exit.
Yeah, very easy to do through Villeneuve. You want to take as much of the inside curb as you can to minimize the AstroTurf, because there is a lot of very deep sand out there, and little bit like a tire width too wide at the second part of Villeneuve will spit you right out into the sand, which thankfully Tixier didn't go too deep, but it was obviously deep enough, and he's now lost probably a second and a half to the cars in front of him.
That's Maverick Benson making his way past Mark Hofsink on the run out of Aqua Minerale. So Benson continuing his recovery there. Hofsink with one of the better runs in the field at the moment. He's up 7 positions from where he started. It's been a controlled and nice drive from the Ford driver. So we'll see if he can hold on to that towards the end, maybe even get a top 12 finish if there's stuff that happens in front of him. Just behind them, though, this battle continuing here between Chatterton, Mitchell and Broikers. Remember, Chatterton was one of the first cars to pit. Ethan Mitchell coming in a little bit later. And Ethan is another driver that has been making up huge positions. He's actually the biggest mover in the field. He's up 11 from where he started. This has been a great drive from Ethan.
Yeah, especially at a track that is notoriously difficult to pass in most cars that race here. Up 11 spots. He started 27th of 27, so he started dead last. To gain 11 spots is just, I'd take that result any day. That's a pretty flawless drive, a bit of pace advantage, pit strategy, a lot of patience, including other people's incidents, but we don't talk about those. It's a very well driven race so far.
And with more or less a clean car as well. I can barely see any damage on that Lamborghini of Ethan Mitchell's. So really setting the standard for clean racing there as, oh dear, it looked like Rick Broikers just overshot Aqua Minerale just behind him. He's made his way back onto the circuit nicely, but unfortunately losing time to that battle in front. Here's some racing though. That looks like Ivan Bertola almost making a move on Diogo Alberto Silva Almeida and into Ravazza. The move is complete, so Ivan Bertola now up into 9th position. Excellent drive from Ivan as well. He's managed to make his way back into the position he started in amongst everything that's gone on in this race so far. But it looks like Almeida fighting back here, attacking around the outside into Tamburello. How brave are they? Looks like Bertola, just catching the speed bump on the inside of Tamburello 1. That's allowed Sebastian Tixier to get back up to the back of these guys and make it a 3-car fight once again.
Yeah, very nice move into Ravazza 1 there by Bertola, but as we saw, the deep dive into 1 compromises you to run through 2 and then down the long straight. Thankfully, he positioned his car well. They both gave enough space. No one crashed, no one lost much time. But it is a risky move into Ravazza 1, as inviting as it is, but they both pulled that off quite well. Obviously Bertola a bit more than Almeida, but they're still racing, pointing forward. Tixier is closer than he was last lap. So yeah, keep fighting on.
Keep fighting on indeed. Let's see how much these guys slow each other up if they continue to battle like they are, because you can see the pursuing Maverick Benson and the Lamborghini just behind them there, coming out of Variante Alta now. And these two starting to leave Sebastian Tixier behind again. In the draft of Bertola is Almeida, and to the outside of Ravazza he goes. Defensive from Ivan, and roll around the outside there for Almeida. That was a fantastic move at the left-hander. A little bit of oversteer on the exit, which has compromised his run down the straight, but take nothing away from Diogo. That was a fantastic move.
It's got to be a move of the race, right? Like, we've seen some good moves, but around the outside of Ravazza as he dives to the inside, he's on the grass. Oh my lord.
Oh my god. Oh, Bertola does not want to give this position up, and Almeida across the speed bumps allows Sebastian Tixier through, and Maverick Benson as well. Hofsink having to take a bit of avoiding action through the exit of Tamburello, as did Rafael Schiffer. My goodness. Right after making that fantastic move, from 0 to 0 at Tamburello.
Oh, I need to catch my breath after that. That move around the outside was fantastic, and then bouncing across that curb, we saw what happened in the Formula One a couple of months ago there. That was hairy, and then I think they left each other enough room. He took a little bit more than he was really allowed to take, and once you hit those things, you launch into the air, and you can't really steer when there's no tires on the ground. And thankfully no one got damaged from that. It was close, but Tixia behind is now under attack from Benson as well, because he's been slowed up through all of this, and I need to catch my breath.
Thank goodness me, this race has had some pretty consistent action all throughout. We are starting to approach the end though, 3.5 minutes to go as we check out the third place battle, Volmir and Katila. And starting to close up again between these two. Volmir making a couple of mistakes there. It's a compromised run out of Villeneuve, which has allowed Tommy Katila back onto the rear of the Lamborghini. So let's see how this battle works out. And they got William Hope just behind them, a lapped car. He's not going to get involved in this. But battle for third has been very hotly contested this whole way through. Volmir in front because he had a quicker overall lane transit and stop than Tommy Katila, showing that pit strategy incredibly important in these GT3 races.
I need more sets of eyes. Wherever I look, there's a battle, and it's just as intense as the last one. We go back to Ethan Mitchell now, our biggest mover still. In the back of this train for 14th is, who have we got? Chatterton and Schiffer in front of them. Schiffer down 8, Chatterton up 8, and Mitchell goes for it to move up the inside, make that up 7. And he keeps moving forward like a promotional energetic speech. Just keep moving forward, and Mitchell has taken that under his belt and is driven even better than we said last lap.
And meanwhile, Tim Volmir having to go defensive here against Katila. Had to turn in a bit early there as the Mercedes almost swept across the front of him. Side by side on the exit of Tamburello. Volmir stays ahead for the time being. Has to go defensive into Villeneuve. How brave is Tommy Katila going to be? No, he backs off. Wise decision there. It's very difficult to make moves into this chicane, but Tosa is where the move can be made. Bit of an inside look for Tommy Katila. Volmir saw him coming and ran wide. He got spooked, and that allows the Mercedes alongside and ahead on the exit of the hairpin.
Side by side into Piratella. Inside almost always wins. He runs wide on exit though. Side by side round Aquaminerai is possible. They go side by side almost. Yields the mid corner though, but manages to pull it up, surprisingly. A lot of the time you'll go deep into there and there's a very big slowdown waiting for you on exit, but very well driven by both drivers, but springboards across the Variante outer curve. And like you said, Villeneuve, not the passing spot, but even if it was a fake move into Tosa, just scared Volmir out of it, and as easy as you like, up into Piratella, down the inside, thank you very much.
Absolutely. So it looks like this third place battle has been a good example of some well-executed moves. Volmir in the pits and Katila out on track, but it is the final lap now for our leader, Ayankan Guven, who has had pretty much the ride of the race. He's out in front pretty much the whole way. There's still plenty of battles to be decided though. Benson on Tixier for the last position inside the top 10. Let's see what Tixier can do here on the final lap to try and keep the Lamborghini behind. He'll have to nail his exit out of Rivazza and try and stymie the run from Maverick Benson, because the draft is king around this part of Imola. Dipping a wheel off into the gravel and the grass is certainly not going to help Tixier's case. So Maverick Benson is going to have a run here into Tamburello. Does he end up going for it as they come out of the lap and across the start-finish line? Up the inside, Maverick Benson goes into Tamburello. Who wins the battle of the last of the late breakers? It is indeed Benson as Tixier lifts off to let him go. And that is Benson then into the top 10. Fantastic stuff there. But we have to turn our attention to our leader, Virtual Racing School Co-Anda Sim Sports' Iankan Guven in the beautiful orange, purple, and white paint job. It's going to be looking especially beautiful today because it's coming home in P1. Iankan Guven, pole position, leading just about every lap. Doesn't quite have the fastest lap of the race, but this is going to be a very sweet victory for Guven. Across the line he comes and wins. Taylor Barnard is going to be the driver with the fastest lap at the end of this one. A woman at 40.748 and a well-deserved second place. Tommy Katila, meanwhile, coming home in third as Tim Volmir comes home a bit further behind than we saw him on the previous lap. Something happened to him there. He might have gotten a slowdown at some point around the circuit. Sebastian Tixier still trying to chase down Maverick Benson to try and get 10th place back. They have the 9th place machine of Ivan Bertola some ways ahead of them, but it looks like this is how the battle is going to work out. Any mistakes here at Ravazza, hard on the brakes for Sebastian Tixier. And through the final proper corner they go. So Maverick Benson completing that recovery there, up 2 positions from where he started, but that doesn't tell the full story of his race. He manages to get into the top 10 at the end of it, and oh no, that is a problem there for Mark Hofsink. Out of fuel makes sense because he had the shortest pit stop of everyone, just 9.5 seconds. So he's absolutely crawling to the line there. He does end up classified at the finish, but down in 18th position, which... I mean, that's a big shame for Mark Hofsink. He could have been quite a bit higher up were it not for that fuel calculation error. Anyway, that is going to bring to an end the proceedings of the racing, and we can go through the results. By 6.9 seconds at the end of it, Iankan Guven got it from Taylor Barnard. It's Tommy Katila and Tim Volmir in third and fourth, with Mario Vartanian rounding out the top 5, making up 3 positions. Sasha Nathan-Cunyon got... bit together with Mario Vartanian at some point in the race and ends up having to come home in 6th with Yuri Steinmetz, Alberto Gravili, Ivan Bertola and Maverick Benson rounding out the top 10.
Sebastian Tixier starts the second row of 10 with Diego Alberto Silva Almeida behind him, Chris Chatterton, Ethan Mitchell and Rafael Schiffer in that intense battle that we saw in the last couple of laps. Danny Boltz, Christopher Lipp, Mark Hopsnick running out, dropping 5 positions coming out of Ravazza 2 on that last lap. Martin Hartel, Riesel, and Jel Sandberg rounding out the top 20.
Rick Broikers suffered some issues in the final laps. He's going to end up coming home 21st and the last car on the lead lap. William Hope and Luciano Assis come home a lap down. Daniel Hartel Riesel there in 17th. 9 laps down. He did end up making it back out on track. And then we get into the retirements. Dominic Kulikovsky and Ted Bradbury, 18 laps from the end they went. And Paul Mansell, unfortunately, retiring just a few laps in after that contact on the formation lap. And, looks to me like, judging from the debate going on in the InSim text chat, Tim Volmir and William Hope not too happy with each other. Something happened between them. I'm going to just briefly go back and check that to see if it was reasonably dramatic. But either way, Bradley, another good night of racing here at Imola, and I'm pretty happy with this series. It's certainly turned it up.
Yeah, I think just week on week it gets better and better and better, and we thank all the drivers for that because it makes our job so much easier when the racing's good. And Imola, like you said, once again providing awesome racing. We head to Spa next week for the warm-up for the 24-hour race, and I don't rank Spa as highly as some people should. I know that that's blasphemy, but the racing it provides is still awesome to watch with that long Kemmel straight and like corners like Lacombe and Pouon and La Source, sorry. It's one that I'm still looking forward to because the action there is always good.
Yeah, absolutely. Spa-Francorchamps next week. Make sure that you join us for that. And we won't show it on the replay, but I did see that Volmir hit the curb in Tamburello and ran wide. And William Hope was continuing through at racing speed, and they ended up coming together. So that is the reason why there was a bit of drama in the InSim text chat after this race concluded. But that brings to an end proceedings for round 5 here at Imola. I'm Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box was Mr. Bradley Wingard and Jay Kennedy, making everything happen behind the scenes on production and cameras, handling the stream on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. We're SimSpeed TV. We hope that you can join us next Saturday for the next round of Virtual Racing School GT Sprint at Spa, but you can catch us tomorrow afternoon, Australian Eastern Standard Time, for Virtual Racing School V8 Scops action from Alton Park. That's going to be next up on our schedule in terms of Australian racing. From all of us at SimSpeed TV, bye for now, but certainly not forever. Hope you enjoyed the show.
Are you new to sim racing, or maybe a veteran struggling to reach the next level? Have you ever wondered how the aliens reach impressive lap times that seem impossible to achieve? If so, you're not alone. Most drivers reach a certain level and get stuck. But getting faster on track is easier than you think. VRS coaches are some of the best sim racers in the world and offer one-on-one driver skills training at affordable rates to help new drivers learn the basics and help experienced drivers break through to the next level. Are you ready to get faster and get off the iRacing roller coaster? If so, VRS one-on-one personal training is for you. If you've invested in your equipment, it might be time to invest in yourself. Just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a 30, 60 or 90-minute session with one of our world-class coaches, and you'll learn exactly what to do for faster lap times and more podiums.